Hello! Welcome back. For those of you who are new here, my name's LeBron and welcome to the show. And today I'll be giving you guys my spoiler-free review on Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's here, guys. It finally arrived. We finally got the Snyder Cut. Now, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, let me back up, give you guys a little bit of backstory when it comes to this film before getting into my review. Now, you may remember back a few years ago, we got the release of the Justice League film, and oh boy, was it bad. Yeah! But what you might not know is the story that's behind the film. You see, while close to the end of production, the director, Zack Snyder, unfortunately had a very tragic death in his family, causing him to step away from the film just before finishing it. And during Zack's absence from the film, the studio felt it necessary to get a different director to come in and sort of finish up the movie for him. But it wasn't too long before the studio announced that Joss Whedon will be taking over the film. And in case you don't know who this guy is, he's the guy who gave us Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Cabin in the Woods, and I know he gave us something else. Well, what was it? What was it? It was something relevant. Oh, that's right, the fucking Avengers. So needless to say, the studio felt like he was pretty well qualified. Now, I'm not really sure if it was the new director or the studio that decided this, but Joss Whedon ended up refilming over 70% of the film, kicking Snyder's name out of the credits, which drowned the film in inconsistencies, blatant character assassinations, and an overall incoherent direction. And that, my dear viewer, brings us to the Snyder Cut. You see, it wasn't too long after the movie's release that the original director, Zack Snyder, started to throw some claims out there that his version of the film was far superior to the one that was released. And once Zack's fans started hearing all the juicy details that he claimed that his version of the film had, it wasn't too long after before the fans started demanding the Zack Snyder Cut. And for the longest time, no one thought that this is something that would actually happen. Hell, I don't even think Zack thought that this was something that would actually happen. But after the fans made their interest in this movie clear, the studio actually let it happen. Warner Brothers announced that they were gonna let Zack Snyder make and release his version of the Justice League, therefore creating the Snyder Cut. And with that introduction, let's get right into the review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. But first thing, I want to answer one of the biggest questions I feel like people have about this film. Is it better than the original? Yes. Oh my God, yes. Now, if I'm being honest, there is maybe one or two things that the original does slightly better than the new version of this film, but overall, the Snyder Cut is a far superior film than the original Justice League movie. But I have to be honest, just because the Snyder Cut is the superior version of the film, honestly does not make it a good film. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say this movie is nothing but a pile of trash. What I am trying to say is that the movie is trash, but I love it. And I mean it, honestly. Despite this movie's many flaws, I was thoroughly entertained the entire time. For those of you who aren't aware, the runtime of this film is 4 hours long. Fucking 4 hours. But even with such a long runtime, I never found myself bored. Besides maybe one or two scenes, this movie does not drag its feet. If it wasn't for the fact that I had to wait until 3 o'clock in the morning for the premiere of this movie, I really don't feel like I would have noticed the runtime as much as I did. In fact, it just felt like I was kind of binging a show. With the movie having, I believe, about 5 different parts throughout it, the audience is given plenty of time to press pause, take a break, maybe go to the bathroom or grab yourself something to drink. And honestly, one of the best improvements in this new version of the film is the characters. With such a long runtime, you find yourself having plenty of time to get to know our characters. And for me, the true standout character in this film is definitely Cyborg. Now, honestly, if you remember Cyborg from the original version of this film, I would be surprised because he's barely in it. And the scenes he gets in the Snyder Cut, honestly, are some of the best scenes in the film. Now, I will say that Ray Fisher, the actor who plays Cyborg, is definitely the new kid in town when it comes to acting compared to the rest of the cast. But I think he's doing a good job in this movie. Now, there are a few scenes here and there where maybe they could have got a better reaction out of him, but overall, his performance is very good. And he's not even the only one. All the characters in this movie get a chance to shine. Throughout this movie, unlike the first one, you do get a lot more scenes of the characters kind of just hanging around. spending time with each other, or even getting on each other's nerves. And this movie also solves one of the biggest problems with the original film, and that would be Steppenwolf, the main villain of this movie. In this film, he's actually a character. Now, of course, he's nothing compared to Thanos or Loki, but a character nonetheless, which is a massive improvement from his role in the first movie. Where before he was as dull as a plank of wood, now he's actually holding entire scenes by himself, giving him a decent amount of motivation as a character. And he also feels more like an actual threat in this film. There are scenes where he actually kills people to obtain his goal, comparative to the first film where they're either killed or just thrown off screen. But honestly, at this point, I have to stop praising this film, because despite all the good things that people are saying about this movie, it's still not good. You see, I believe that it's because of the unique situation this film is in that it's simply just too big to fail, both in scope and runtime. With the first movie doing so poorly, plenty of people were outspoken about their complaints of the original film. So much so that Zack Snyder basically had a guidebook on what people did and didn't want when it came to this movie, which is such an advantage. All Zack needed to do was just make this film better than the first one, and then it was basically guaranteed to succeed. Then with a 4-hour runtime, I think honestly any experienced director would be able to sort of flesh out all of their characters in that allotted amount of time. But honestly, I think without the contrast of the first film, this movie would not work. If this was the only version of the film that we got, it definitely wouldn't be as good as it is. Because even though there are some good things in this film, the things that the film does bad, it does really bad. And despite my previous compliments, this movie's littered with problems. I mean, the graphics are better than the first film, but it feels more like they just went from PlayStation 2 graphics to PlayStation 3 graphics. And I seriously mean it. A lot of this movie feels like a video game. There are so many terrible CGI environments in this movie. You're telling me you couldn't find a single place to film this scene? I mean, seriously, this looks like a video game. Especially when Cyborg goes into his weird, unexplained virtual world. This looks like a game. This looks like Injustice 3. But that's not even all that's wrong with this film. Throughout this film, there is a lot of weird emotional scenes where something cool will be happening on screen, and then out of nowhere, they start playing these weird out-of-place songs. It really feels like whoever added the music to this film never even seen the film. And the problems just keep going from there. And honestly, I can go on and on and on about this movie and all of its flaws, but if I want to stay spoiler-free in this video, I'm gonna have to end my review here. So what was my overall opinion about this film? This movie feels sort of like a raging dumpster fire, and yet I still loved it. Earlier I mentioned that I didn't think this film would have worked as well without the context of the other movie, but that's the thing. We have the other movie. We live in a world where this wasn't just a simple film. This was an event that I enjoyed. And for the event that is Zack Snyder's Justice League, easy 10 out of 10. Now this may not have been the dumpster fire that we deserved, but it was definitely the dumpster fire that we needed. And with that, I want to thank you all so much for sticking out to the end of this video. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.